In a small coastal town on New Zealand's North Island, nobody could have predicted that a quiet, 6-year-old boy swinging a plastic bat in his backyard would one day become the heartbeat of a nation's cricket team. Kane Williamson was born on the 8th of August, 1990, in Tauranga, into a family built for sport. His father had played club cricket. His mother had represented New Zealand in basketball. His 3 older sisters were volleyball players, and his twin brother Logan was always just a step behind him, literally born 1 minute later. Sport wasn't a hobby in this house. It was the language the family spoke. By the time Williamson reached Tauranga Boys College, the legend had already begun. He scored centuries the way other kids scored boundaries again and again until it stopped being news. Some say he crossed 40 centuries before he even left school. He became head boy. He captained every side he played for. And underneath it all was something his coaches couldn't quite teach, a stillness, a patience, a refusal to panic that would one day become his signature against the fastest bowlers on earth. At 16, he was already playing first-class cricket. At 17, he made his debut for Northern Districts, the domestic side he would represent for the rest of his career. And in 2010, the door to international cricket finally opened. He walked out to bat in his very first Test innings against India, and did something almost no one does on debut. He scored a century, calm, composed, as if he belonged there all along, because he did. What followed was 16 years of quiet devastation for bowling attacks around the world. While the cricketing world obsessed over power hitters and aggressive stroke play, Williamson built his game on something older: timing, placement, and an almost supernatural sense of where the ball was going to be. He didn't need to hit the ball hard. He just needed to hit it right. Commentators ran out of new ways to describe the same thing: effortless, inevitable, serene. In 2016, after Brendan McCullum's retirement, New Zealand handed Williamson the captaincy across all 3 formats. He was 25 years old, and suddenly the weight of an entire cricketing nation rested on those calm shoulders. He carried it without complaint. Under his leadership, New Zealand reached the semi-finals of the 2016 T20 World Cup. They reached the final of the 2021 T20 World Cup. And then there was 2019, the ODI World Cup final at Lord's, the most dramatic match cricket had ever seen, ending in a tie, then a super over, then a boundary count rule that handed the trophy to England. New Zealand didn't lose that final. Cricket simply ran out of ways to declare a winner. Williamson stood on that ground, having scored a century in the final itself, and accepted the result with a grace that left even England's players uneasy about celebrating too hard. 2 years later, the story found its balance. In 2021, in the very first World Test Championship final, Williamson led New Zealand against India at Southampton and won. It remains one of the proudest moments in New Zealand cricket history, and Williamson, as always, gave the credit to everyone but himself. Through it all, the numbers quietly piled up. Across his career, Williamson scored over 19,000 international runs in all formats combined. In Test cricket alone, the format he loved most, he finished with 9,515 runs at an average of 54.06 across 110 matches, with 33 centuries to his name. He became New Zealand's all-time leading run scorer in Test cricket, ODI cricket, and across international cricket as a whole. He was part of the so-called Fab Four, spoken of in the same breath as Virat Kohli, Steve Smith, and Joe Root, 4 batsmen who defined an era. And yet Williamson always seemed slightly removed from the noise around that conversation, content to let the others chase headlines while he simply chased runs. In November 2025, the first chapter of the goodbye began. Williamson announced his retirement from T20 internationals, choosing to step back from the format so younger players could build toward the next World Cup. It was a typically selfless decision, made not for himself, but for the team's future. He continued on in Test and ODI cricket, determined to give everything he had left. And then came June 2026. New Zealand travelled to England for a 3-Test series, and at Lord's, the same ground where Williamson had walked off in 2019 with a World Cup final loss he didn't deserve, he played what would become his final Test innings. Scores of 0 and 18. England won comfortably, and on the 12th of June, just days before the second Test at the Oval, Kane Williamson did what he always did. He made the decision quietly, on his own terms, with no fuss and no drama. He announced his immediate retirement from international cricket. "I've thought about it for a while," he said, "but over the last few days it's become clear now is the right time." He spoke about the hunger and pride he had always felt putting on the Black Caps jersey, and how continuing with anything less than his best simply wouldn't be right. It was the same humility that had defined him since that backyard in Tauranga. Even his goodbye put the team first. He leaves the game as New Zealand's greatest ever Test batsman by the numbers, just short of the magical 10,000-run milestone, but ahead of every Black Cap who ever lived in terms of runs scored for his country across all formats. He leaves having captained New Zealand to a World Test Championship title, 2 World Cup finals, and years of respect from opponents who feared his bat far more than his words. Kane Williamson never sought the spotlight. He never needed it. For 16 years, he simply turned up, faced the music, and let his bat do the talking, softly, elegantly, and devastatingly effective. New Zealand cricket will go on, but it will never quite sound the same without him at the crease. This has been the story of Kane Williamson, the quiet king of New Zealand cricket. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the legends of the game.